So glad you're sitting down.
We're still waiting for the shooter.
Sales tax continues to trend up for us. Of course, you know, I don't have a measurement yet of how much of that is gas related, but you know, some of it is, of course. But we stand at 1.5 million over this time last year, which was over the year before. So that's still trending up. And the only other piece of news that's worthwhile for you today is that our second tranche of stimulus money came in this morning as I signed into my computer. So
That's nice.
we have the second tranche in hand.
Just appeared?
Just appeared. I had to go in and apply for it, which I did. But there was no notice on when it was coming. It just showed up this morning.
Is that what we've already done? Was that what our deadline was too, that we've already applied, or do we have to apply?
Your deadline was several months before.
Right, but the
Well,
one
no,
we
I
just,
had to go in and actually apply for the second tranche. And I did that.
I don't think we have to do anything. Ours is
If
just
it comes
supposed to
through the
show
state,
up.
you might not have to do anything. I physically had to
We
go
had
in
to
and
do-
ask.
We had to do that one,
We just had to do
that one
that.
check mark.
But his reporting period that you had to report was like last September, and our first reporting period was.
So I've done two reports,
Okay.
but I actually had to go in and ask for the second tranche.
Civil rights.
And I did that. They agreed this morning.
Question.
Right.
So I understand this. So we're $1.5 million out of last year,
Yes, sir.
and that's all ours. 2021, there were several things taken out that lowered our number.
Yes.
Those things are not taken out in 2022,
So in May,
except for the one,
you had the last village son of the AIM.
May of
May of
2022.
2022, you did have money taken from the
About
villages.
100,000.
The village is
It's gonna be the last,
95 something.
that should be the last draw of the AIM funds, which they call the AIM related.
So not only are we up, we're up next even more.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Well, gross, your gross is up.
Gross is up, but
This is not,
That is,
Gross is
that's
even-
$1,500,000, isn't it?
right.
if you put the village money back in.
Right.
The other piece to your point, that I didn't mention that I probably should have, if you look at the little box on the right, I'm also tracking, because remember the distribution to the towns and villages is measured from 8/1 to 7/31. So you're almost at the end of the measurement period for next year's distribution to the towns and villages.
And this should
So
be,
because that was the last part of this year and the first part of, last part of last year and the first part of this year, you've got all of the candy in your measurement.
yes, this will be the biggest
So
number ever.
If you were to take a dip this year, you're only risking another month of your 2023 distribution. So the box on the right shows where you are right now. And if no more money came in between now and July 31st, you've almost got now what you had in last year's measurement. So that was just an interesting tidbit as well as I was looking at the numbers just there.
We could be $2 million between now and last year.
With, if nothing changes, and I don't see the gas prices going any direction other than up, so.
You know,
Mr. Sunshine.
Al mentioned gasoline. I'd like us to consider what I think 15 counties in the state are doing, where they're capping the dollar value per gallon at $2 each gallon, and they tax those $2 of each gallon, not the extra. Kind of put us back to where we were a year and a half ago. I think we should do the same thing. Still collect the sales tax, but it's just each $2 per gallon that you capture. I talked to Doug Beatty about this because he was in the paper about Warren County suggesting this, and he said that the gasoline stations and the vendors, this is not hard for them to do. They need, a couple weeks notice for all their software, but they can easily do that. And I think that's what we should do, because we would still collect the same tax as historically we did, and give our citizens a little bit of a break. Why should we keep taxing it at, the next $3 per gallon each time? Just cap it at $2 per gallon.
my question is, where's the break if it's $4.99 everywhere where the counties have already done it as it is here? Where's the break to the consumer? There's no way to measure it.
It's just that after the first $2 per gallon, he's not paying county tax.
No, it's going to the vendor. The price is the same whether you're in Saratoga County or you're in Warren County or what, it's $4.99 everywhere, right to that. So what
The
is,
savings goes to the consumer.
no, there's no savings to the consumer. The price is the same at every pump right now. That's my question. How do we keep track of that so we know our consumers getting any benefit?
So you say the lost local tax is still paid, but it goes to the vendor?
The price is the same at every station. So if you're paying $4.99 where they're already taking it off the tax,
I don't think.
the only
that's
thing
right.
suffering is your tax bill.
What he's saying in English is that instead of 2% going to sales tax, 2% is going to the vendor.
That accomplishes nothing.
So Dana.
I don't think, is that, well, I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm surprised.
So I, and you for Brian and I were talking about this, Michelle and I were driving down Route 4, it was 470, I think 470, 470.
Yeah.
Over in Saratoga County, whatever it was here. They were less, but like the next day, the number went right back up again. So they're taking that, they're increasing it on their own, right? The seller. Now there's getting that difference.
Is anybody interested in the conversation? Because I'm gonna ask that
Yes.
question to somebody and I'll come back and see if that's the case.
And why I'm interested in the conversation is if those small amount, what did you say? It was $1.50 a tank full?
It was $1.50 or $2 for
A tank full.
per tank.
$1.80 for 20 gallons.
And it's very interesting if you look at it that way, because if we could stay flat on our tax increase in the year, they'd be far better off than the $1.50 or $10. That's kind of the way I look at it. I don't know how everybody else feels.
So was there, when they suspended the debt, New York State didn't dictate to these sellers of gas that they couldn't just increase arbitrarily the number? That feels like what's been done.
I didn't feel like it was the seller, I thought it was the suppliers.
I looked at our stations in our town and I didn't see a 16-cent decrease.
It went down like one day.
Let's do it.
I don't know where it went. It went, I said it didn't go to the consumer.
They're raising their price.
One day.
It went down to 473.
Yeah.
For a day?
And they had $4.89 the
What I
next.
what I understood is that the gas companies
Yeah.
that are supplying it are the ones that increase the price, forcing that onto the shop owner.
But then the numbers would have been similar everywhere. They wouldn't have leveled
It's
out.
based on when you purchase the gas, right?
So it was a 1 day difference. That's what I think I was noticing. It was a 1 day.
It was a 1 day
The very
difference.
next day, they were.
They were right back to where, yeah, I know, I agree with you on that,
For
but
me, that's the shops. That's not the producers or the distributors.
Going to the shop is hardly anything like that.
You got to throw this idea out there, and I might get shot down with it. But if the county is taking in so much extra money in sales tax, should we look at the amount that the county gives back to the towns? Because Washington County gives the least amount of money in sales tax back to the towns. The towns could way better manage it and reduce the cost to the taxpayers that way than from reducing it by cutting any sales tax at the gas pump.
I think you're getting more just because it's a percentage. It's a percentage, so you're getting more.
Well, but you're getting, no, isn't it $1 million plus a percentage?
No, it's 7% of the total.
No, to the towns.
7%
7% of the
total.
As it goes up, you get more.
10%.
There used to be a formula that was
There was a flat million. We changed that
and
long
then it
ago.
was a flat million plus something.
No, it's with the 7%.
It wasn't a flat million to
Total.
7%.
Well, then why not? What I'm saying, you can still do that. You could increase 8%. I'm just saying, the county is reaping such a large amount. Would it be better to consider increasing? Because we are the lowest, are we not? With Saratoga, Warren County, Rensselaer County,
No
that goes
idea.
back to the towns.
Well, they're all
I
different.
think.
They're all different. Everyone's different in the state, so I have
Any
no
county
way
with a city, any county with a city is required to distribute sales
to the
tax.
city. Yeah.
Glens Falls,
Saratoga.
Saratoga, among others,
Yeah, Saratoga's got 2.
Troy,
Mechanicsville.
Mechanicsville, whatever. So if you have a city, the distribution formula is mandated by the state. We do not. We didn't distribute sales tax for a long time. And then we did. So our formula is completely voluntary. So it's different because it's different, I guess is the point. Let's take that into account.
But my idea is still out there.
We're getting all laser focused on the revenue. side of this, our expense side of this is
It's huge.
just as much or more.
Yeah,
So we could do all kinds of tax savings at the pumps and even if it did work and wind up having to charge more property tax to pay for the fuel.
that's the problem.
We don't pay tax.
We just
County
put a,
doesn't pay tax when we
It's
buy.
not, we gotta buy
No,
gas.
we gotta buy, we gotta pay the actual price. We just moved $1 million and it's probably not enough to get us through the year just for fuel,
Right, so,
right?
so you look at this as a windfall on one hand, but it's not, it's just keeping the bucket full on the other.
Right, it's,
Thanks for,
and if the consumer's paying the same, no matter what you set the rate at, it's even worse.
thanks for bringing common sense back to the conversation.
Yeah, well, it won't last.
Very good. Okay. So it's all things to consider and we will consider. And I hope you do find an answer to that question, Dana, because I'd like to know whether, how it's being touched on. Okay, so our next deal is the mowing contract. You're here. Did you get lost out there?
Yep. Can I go off script for a second, seriously?
Certainly.
So I just got back from highway school and Washington County did very well at a competition called Build a Better Mousetrap, where you take a problem and you find a creative way to solve it. So Roger's office actually won through Phil as well. And our DPW shop fabricated a culvert cleaner to get beaver crap on the culverts and stuff, so that the guys don't have to go down in the water, and we got first place for it. So they're very excited about this. So.
That's really good. Sounds like a real safety deal. I like this.
And I think we should wish Debbie happy birthday. I understand it was your birthday down there.
Happy birthday, Deb.
No.
Yeah, where is this beaver cleaner? I'd like to look at it.
I don't know.
Don't give me your, don't give him, he's got patents.
I don't.
It's a fabric that you.
I can't wait to see how he
That
uses
doesn't
it on
allow the
Facebook.
water level to come up so they can, because when the water level gets to a certain height, the beavers then start damming it up. But if the water level doesn't get there because the water flows out underneath this fabric and stone they put in there, right?
Well, this one is more of a medieval thing where he built something to go on the end of the gradle and it pushes into the culvert and cleans it out. I actually put both posters, the one from Phil's Safety Days and the one from this are over in the Board of Supervisors so that you can look at it. So.
Beaver problem.
Every town in the county's got a beaver problem. It's awful.
But I can find out if it's over there at the shop, but it's probably at one of the farms.
They behave in our town. Our beavers are well.
I'm waiting for you to throw a
Yeah,
grenade, minor problems. I'm waiting for you to throw a grenade in the water.
So I sent out a request to all the highway superintendents across the state and asked how much and how they think the mowing contract. And about a third of them responded, 18 counties, 5 mow their own, 5 pay the rental rate and the labor rate, and 10 pay their towns. Of the 10, the range was from $100 per centerline mile to $656.
Wow.
Now, those were the 2 outliers. Just to note, Warren County was 140, which I thought was interesting. So I did the average was 351. We currently contract with 6 towns. That's not including Granville this year. So I calculated a state rental rate for a possibility. The rental rates are $26.36 for a mower. Now, those are 2017 rental rates. The state has not updated their rental rate stuff since then. So I made an assumption that it took 2 hours to mow a mile because there's a lot of factors that go into it, but that's what's the assumption here. And I assumed that for a mile, the labor and the fuel at 2 gallons a mile came out to $106 per. Or one that I thought might be more conducive to the town is the average from all of the counties who responded was $351, so. I thought maybe it would be a good idea to increase it to $351.
Now, what counties were those, could you say that? Are they the surrounding counties?
Nope, they are the counties that responded are all across the state. I can tell you.
Oh, I thought they were maybe our neighbor, but
The only neighboring one that got back to me was Warren County.
104.
Albany does their own. Yeah, Warren County is 140. Albany does their own. Saratoga did not get back to me. Saratoga and Slade did not.
You know,
What's the rental rate make that?
So that's what we charge. So for example, it's what we charge ourselves to use our machines. So when it's it's meant to go into the budget so that you can replace it in the end. It's so.
our machinery fund.
Okay, so it does, nobody does it privately, they don't bid it out necessarily to do it privately, it's just state.
Nobody that responded did it.
but that includes the hourly wage of the person operating the machine, and
No.
all the benefits, that's included in the rental.
I don't think it is.
No.
It's just the
No,
machine.
the rental rate's just to replace the machine.
We got all the money for FEMA from Hurricane Irene, and didn't include the
Well,
wages.
that's different. You have to break them all down separate.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about FEMA because I was trying to find better rental rates and the better rental rates were through the FEMA website. It's more up to date. It was like 2020 or 2021 rental rates. I don't know why the state has not updated theirs, but it's definitely worth looking into. So.
Well, the rental rate's gotta be up because the cost of equipment's up 30 to 40% easy
But I don't
from
think
17 to now.
Can you tell us in that what we're paying?
260.
269.
Go to 350 is what you, I'll make that motion,
To go to 350.
to go $351.
To go to $351 per center lane mile. If Granville comes back, it will be an increase of just over $8,000 for our budget for the year. It'll be $8,010.
Can I ask one more question?
Yep.
Are you considering retro back to the like first low? So this would be 2022 rates. And it would be retro for the whole year.
Yes, because
Fair.
they
We've already
started,
got the money, I think.
because they started out earlier than June 15th.
Okay. $351 per center line mile. That's my motion, anyway, second.
I'll second it. for discussion.
It's not,
That's why you can't give money back from sales tax.
I needed to buy my the flails on the mower that I'm ruining on the county road, which I can't get.
well, you're not supposed to hit the asphalt, you're supposed to hit the grass.
We should charge them for running the road.
Guardrails.
They don't pave county roads in the town of Hartford anyway.
Okay, we have a motion and a second discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We're good.
Can I just ask, what is this gaining us? Are people gonna come back and start mowing like Granville? Because if nobody's gonna come back and start mowing, and the ones that have chose to mow, we've got them anyway. We gained out of it.
Well, that was a question I had, should we open it back?
Well,
Since there's been this change.
We could become like Granville, leave.
Yeah,
Yeah, if it's just not covering the
Well-
cost,
Start covering our costs.
right. That's what you're getting.
Oh,
You're
I
still gonna
understand that, but
understand.
what are we gaining? Is this gonna help DPW out?
Yes, because if all of them left, DPW would have to have more mowers and more people.
That would be next year, we could put it in the budget.
No, it'd be this year. The
Nobody-
grass has to be
Nobody's
mowed.
threatening to leave. They just wanted to do it.
Hartford.
You just said this.
so.
Hartford.
Right.
I'm telling my guy right now, don't leave yet.
Fill out the bill.
Right.
Uh,
So what's the total cost increase for us this year by doing this?
$8,000.
$10 and
Well, that was
58
for
cents.
one
If Granville.
8,000 is assuming Granville comes back and all the others who have done it in the past years do it as well, except for Salem. Salem,
I thought that was for one town.
No, it's for everybody.
Okay.
so there's Kingsbury, Salem, and
Who's
Granville.
our guy math, so. Very good, thank you.
Because one look, we only adjust this like once every 10 years or something.
Yeah, there has to be
Have more
some
of a
big
schedule
change.
where we kind of look at this every few years and instead of waiting.
Well, it's
for
like
an
we
extreme, like,
didn't lower it when the price of fuel went down.
we should.
No, we didn't. So basically you look at it when things get out of whack and.
Yeah, the last rate was set as per Jimmy Lindsay. And if you look at where the fuel was there, it went up and down, but now it's up, so it's a steady increase.
Well, it went down.
But we never got more when it went back up. But I think it should float, like every 2 years, we should look at this.
I
It's
tried
gonna
to
be down the price of equipment, manpower went up.
We're keeping it under the 2% cap,
Make
so
it
just, maybe we should have just went 2% on the number.
Or
Part of the annual
$2 an hour, because it takes two hours to do a road. Right, 2 hours to do a mile.
Now, is that
Cannibal.
for 2
Be
months?
added for the organization.
Yes,
You know, that.
with the dog laws, be perfect.
That's a good reminder. that-
You get a center line mile, and you figure 2 hours. That's on, you're only getting 1 hour per mile, because the other hour coming back, right?
Yep, so that's why I figured too.
And so, but you gotta do it twice. So now you're actually down to 30 minutes a mile. If you're gonna do it twice a year.
You don't go faster, you just have to go another time.
Well, no, what I'm saying is you're not gonna. I'm gonna drop it because it's costing the county money, but I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole for that kind of rate.
You know, the new rate.
Even the new one's terrible. 30 minutes a mile, you can't mow 30 minutes a
That
mile.
was an assumption I made. I had to make an
But-
assumption.
And I agree with it. I
You're doing the
can say
field,
that
but you can't.
either way, it's the rate does it. I'm not complaining with any numbers here. I'm just saying that's not good one.
So we'll give this a try and look at it next
Hire
time.
4 more people with size, send them out.
Yeah.
Something they used to. And the whole summer walking around road mowing.
Come on, I've got 5 people right now.
We've already passed it, so I assume we can move on. So the next item here is to consider the possible participation in Cdbgta Grant, senior housing, set public hearing. And we have a whole contingent of people here that are gonna tell us exactly what they're talking.
Okay, so I'm going to start off and kind of give you an explanation of what happened. Homefront Development Corporation, which is essentially the only acting agency in the county that both owns senior housing and actively, at least in the past, participated in generating funding that helped veterans, seniors, handicapped, et cetera, do home repair. So my 3 companions here are all board members on Homefront, and they can tell you a little bit more about the agency, but what's effectively happened is the agency is currently unstaffed, has 2 properties in Washington County, one in the town of Fort Ann, one in the town of Argyle, that are substandard and in need of some repairs. So New York State Office of Community Renewal happened to call me because I'm familiar with the CDBG program and suggested that given the difficulties at Homefront, one way forward might be to apply for what's called the Cdbgta Grant, which is a technical assistance grant, which could in fact evaluate the condition of the housing structures and determine the level of repairs that are needed to make them safe and standard. But also part of that would be to try and help determine what happens going forward. Does Homefront simply just disband and turn the assets over to an agency to be determined? I.e. they could work with the board and come to a determination as to what's sustainable for the long term. So I'm basically here because normally we'd want to have a whole lot more conversation about this before discussing it at a board meeting like this, but in order to do CDBG, we are required to hold a public hearing before the application goes in. So in order to use that timing, we would have to ask this committee to request a hearing and then schedule the hearing at the board meeting on the 17th to actually be held in July, which would in fact be in time for the application. So the county can decide to participate or decide not to participate, but if we don't schedule the public hearing, we can't participate. So there's no harm in doing it. My suggestion would be to have continued conversation at committee about this, and our Homefront representatives can go into more detail, but the immediate need is to,
In case we want to do
in
something.
case you need, right.
Okay, one of you must be familiar with the actual buildings.
Well, to some degree, yeah. So we're familiar with the projects. So what happened back in 2017, 2018, we knew that the properties needed work. Roofs, furnaces, sidewalks. Some of the properties were experiencing moisture issues. And we applied, the state at that time had a pool of money for to make these repairs called PTAP. We applied for that. We had an architect and an engineer come out and review the properties and came up with a list of things that needed to be repaired. That came up to about $750,000. That also included a property in Warrensburg. Then COVID hit and everything came to a screeching halt. The money didn't start flowing again until 6-8 months ago. They required us to do another contractor review, and the project is no longer $750,000, it's more like $1.4 million with the cost. So the problem is the state said we don't have any more money than what you were originally awarded, and you either use it for all the projects as listed, or you don't use any of the money. So you can't say, well, we're going to put new roofs, but we're not going to do furnaces because these issues were identified. So we're in the process now. We're working with veterans and community housing out of Saratoga, who manages veterans properties to manage our properties currently. They are working with the state agency that oversees the PTAP funding, who thinks that they may be able to get that funds increased up to what we need, or find additional emergency funds for that. CDBG is one avenue, so we would like to have that on the table should we need to go that route. Veterans and Community Housing is sending their own architect out this week to review the original list that was done and see where we're at with all the properties.
So at this juncture, the best we can do is set a public hearing, and this would come back to a planning committee. Is that where this is coming?
I'm thinking Health and Human Services.
Health and Human Services. I was thinking.
Don't get confused, they just reached out to the board.
Right.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with that plan for us, so. Permanent.
Well, I'm just thinking of the department head that's handling it. That's where I'm.
She got reached out. So.
I haven't heard from them yet. They wanted to come to theirs, so that's what I'm asking. John? You're on mute. There you go.
How many total houses is there included?
The 2 units in Washington, I'm sorry, I should go back. Like the 2 units in Washington County are 2 buildings are 8 units each.
So 16 units in total?
So 16 couples, families are living in buildings that need repair.
Okay, and after the $1 million renovations to these buildings, are they going to be worth that amount of money?
I do not know that.
That would probably be part of what the TA grant would determine, because it would be a feasibility study to both. So I should have said, a municipality has to apply. So the choice is either the county applies, and therefore the project looks at both structures. We can apply for up to $50,000, and there is a 5% match, which would mean a $2,500 match. The alternative is the two respective towns could apply, but that gets a lot more complicated and the state, there actually happens to be, as Brian said, there's another facility in Warrensburg that they're gonna have to make a similar determination with. I think it would be less complicated to have a whole bunch of smaller applications out than it would be to consolidate it under a single umbrella. And it would be a feasibility study of the condition of the buildings, but more importantly, what happens next? Who manages this? What happens? Do the assets get sold? Do they get turned over to somebody? Who takes responsibility, et cetera? The outcome should be addressing all of that.
Well, Lufkin's Commons have been there quite a while. Who's been collecting the rent all the while? Who gets the money from the rent?
The rent still comes in
So who?
to Homefront.
Well, so Homefront's been collecting rent for 20 years or more.
Yeah.
Why aren't they saving up money? Why aren't they doing periodic repairs with that? Isn't that what rent's for?
Periodic repairs are being done, but that's all that was being done. Larger scale
I mean,
maintenance. was
if I
happening.
have a rental house, I gotta keep it up.
Right.
Based on the rent. What's Homefront's put into this besides, us going out and scouting for a grant for it? What's Homefront putting into the repairs?
So Homefront has been doing the ongoing maintenance. Rents are $500 for an apartment, so they're really low, that they have not been increased except for that 2% cost of living that can be charged. And that has been paying basically the ongoing, there's snow plowing, lawn mowing that needs to be done to all the apartments, those types of contracts. There is a fund to make repairs, which they have been using, but the rents have not kept up with putting money into the larger repair fund.
This is a rent control situation.
Right, yeah.
Okay, all right.
And this is for a specific group of people that qualify to be there.
They're senior low.
David Ryan, or do you ever have?
That.
I'm just curious. Isn't there additional assistance available for some of these senior people, especially low income, besides that? The rents could be increased to incorporate that?
So that's one of the things, if they're on a voucher, the rents could go up and the voucher would cover that, is my understanding, but that takes permission from the state to increase those. And because these were built at a time, there's different classifications for the income limit. And these were very low income. It would be my, for lack of a better word, to explain how it's done.
Sue Claire?
Is Homefront responsible for the one that's working in Cambridge? As far as their agreement that's not Homefront?
So Homefront administered the New York Main Street
Oh,
grant
yeah,
for
yeah.
Agway and 9 West Main Street there.
And from what I understand, there's like a 7-year oversight on that. Is there a 7-year oversight on these buildings? Is that why it's coming to our attention now? Because you said 2017, and then now it's 2022, and so it's 5 years in.
No, that's when we originally submitted for this PTAP funds to make repairs, but that came to a halt because of COVID. By the time they got contracts and everything signed, the state wasn't releasing money. So we're finally going back.
Denoted.
Because you mentioned vouchers. Who, Section 8 vouchers?
I'm not sure what the vouchers are.
Okay, you said there's an average of 500 per.
Yep.
Are those single bedroom or double?
Most of them are single. The one up here, Mall Street Square in Kingsbury has some 2 bedrooms.
Yeah. Is Homefront almost as well?
Homefront owns Mall Street as well.
Okay, thank you.
Just as a point to clarify that, one of the reasons that Office of Community Renewal contacted me, just because I'm familiar with this program, is because they have a vested interest. New York State has a department called Asset Management. And essentially when they make grants, in this case related to housing, but it would also apply to a public facility with community housing, they have regulations in terms of upkeep and how they're supposed to be kept, et cetera. So because of those Main Street grants and the contracts with Homefront, as well as just the situation where you have substandard buildings. Asset management with an OCR wants to know what's going to happen with all of the contracts, et cetera, that are currently under the Homefront.
So you mentioned the Moss Street one also, but there's only 2 that are in disrepair, or whatever we want to call it at this point. How many others are there
So
that are under Homefront within the county?
there's 3 properties within Washington,
So the other one is just the one in Kingsbury.
Ferdinand, Kingsbury.
Okay. And now we've mentioned the place in Cambridge. Is that an opportunity of someone that could run this if Homefront went away?
So Cambridge was a New York Main Street plan to make repairs to facade improvements and an affordable unit in.
But somebody manages that.
Right, so Homefront was just administering the New York Main Street grant. So what happened, because of the other grants that we managed and to have a staff, we would manage other grants that fit the mission of Homefront to use those administrative funds to pay staff. And one of those was Cambridge was looking at a New York Main Street grant for 3 properties in the village. Homefront wrote that grant and administered the grant. That is now, Agway's in the process of being closed out now, so that Main Street grant will be finished.
There's also the one in Greenwich.
For Wally's, which has been closed out.
And that's not for housing, that's not for housing, that's for
Right.
improvements.
So who manages the housing in Cambridge? Is that a management group?
It's not housing, it's.
No, you do have senior housing in Cambridge.
But not with
Nothing to do with
Homefront.
That's
Homefront.
No, so who manages that? Is there an ability,
ICC.
is there an ability for somebody to expand and manage the Homefront properties if it goes away? Or do we have to look outside, or is the group that's doing it now a long-term fit, or is this just a Band-Aid to get us there?
We're exploring all possibilities. Right now, the Veterans and Community Renewal Community Housing in Saratoga is kind of the Band-Aid, but they have experience running these properties and programs.
There is another entity down in Troy that has been very well known for decades for similar management project entities like this, and that's Troy Housing and Rehabilitation. In fact, LEAP at one point did lead-based paint testing and some remediation programs. They turned all of their programming over to Troy. So they would, again, that's part of what that TA grant would do, is find a match. Who's the right partner to take this over?
Okay, so that'll come at a different meeting, and we're saying Human Services is where that'll be. We're just setting the public hearing if this is a way to go forward. Is everyone good with that? Okay, so I need a motion. I got from James Griffith, second by Dave O'Brien. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carry. Okay. We're on to budget amendments. Okay. Okay, resolution A is to amend the county road budget for the pothole program, and that's the money that's being recognized in the budget that was passed in the state budget. Moved by Dave O'Brien, second by James Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Okay, the next one is mental health budget, state aid. Recognizing funds. Moved by Darrell.
Yep.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Okay, C is COVID awareness funds. Being same thing, being recognized in the budget. By Dana, second by Sue. Discussion?
Isn't this a complete waste of money? Who is not aware of COVID vaccines?
Who?
This is to make people more aware that there's a vaccine program. I know it's 100% funded, but still, $21,000, someone's paying for that. That's a complete, unless there's way more of this program than I think, this is complete waste of money.
Mr. Hogan.
What's the next vaccination booster do?
I have no idea.
I don't either.
But I don't need someone to tell me. I can, in 10 seconds, I can find that out.
But there's a company out there now.
But these people, how are they gonna find it on a computer?
There's a new vaccines coming out
There's a
too.
new one here.
All you have to do is watch the news.
But also aging and disabled residents.
They put that on Fox?
Well, they're giving you- One American.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No, it's a waste of money. Let's stop spending money.
Carried. Resolution
We don't
B,
spend it time.
amend Department of Social Services budget for pandemic emergency assistance program. Moved by Dave, second by Sue. Any discussion? Yes, or have, really?
Is this kind of the pandemic emergency assistance program? This is stimulus? Is that what this is, really stimulus going on to a, because I've never heard of, well, did some people get stimulus on a card? Did you get a card or
This
did
is
you get
more
a
of
check?
that,
This is like stimulus, right?
this is more of.
What it is, this is for meals, this is for food. It's
The low income.
because of inflation and they're putting money out there so they have money enough to eat.
Can one person speak up?
It's for one, it's so they have money enough to eat in this situation we're in.
But this is stimulus funds for that, right?
Yes. Yeah, so like.
Did citizens like this already receive stimulus?
Yeah,
So
they're
this
getting
is
more because of the
the
inflation.
EBT card that they use, that's only for certain items. Okay, I just wondered if this was just another stimulus. I'm not against it necessarily, I just wanted to clear.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. E is to amend community development fund for TANF summer youth employment funding. So we're recognizing some more grant money. Moved by Sue, second by
Second.
Hogan.
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Discussion.
Let's have a discussion.
Al, are you still in leave? You left leave.
I did.
Summer youth employment funding. So is this to help summer youth find jobs, or do we employ, does the county employ the youth?
So the county doesn't, this is administered by LEAP, and they put them in touch with local businesses and stuff there. This is state TANF money that flows in for the summer job program. I don't know a lot of detail about the actual program, but I know that LEAP administers and it connects youth with summer employment. I know they work with the Bow and Alley here in Fort Everett, and there's some local businesses that they use these funds, and I think it's to help offset their hourly wages. In budget time, we put a number in budget time, because we don't know what the awards are gonna be. This just makes it the award.
So LEAP knows who is looking for help, summer youth help.
Yes, sir. They work with Mike Gray, I believe.
And it's everybody, and there's never been a better time to be youth looking for work. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, resolution F, amend capital project. Long-term control plan, sewer district. Motion. Moved by Dave O'Brien, second by Dave Hogan. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Maybe that's what we should have. Is there anybody who wants to vote for no discussion? We can move on quick. It's passed. Resolution G. Number one sewer district repairs 197th bridge. I'm gonna use the fund.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Darrell, second by Dave O'Brien. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried. H is septic engineering for sewer district.
So moved.
Moved by Darrell, second by Dave. Any discussion on this one? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, then the sewer district, number 2 for debt service. And you can see the serial bonds, the ban, and appropriated fund balance.
That's so moved.
Moved by Darrell Wilson, second by Dave O'Brien. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. J is capital project 113, Homeland Security Grants. Motion to move this.
I'll move it.
By Darrell, second by Dave. Any discussion?
Maybe at the Board of Supervisors, when we do this, I'd like to have some more discussion maybe with the sheriff. How this money is spent, because we all know what happened at Uvalde. They didn't learn the lessons of, what was that school called? Columbine. They didn't learn the lessons of that, so the first law enforcement officer on the scene goes in. I want to know, is that our tactic at the county? Goes in. Do they have the necessary equipment in the squad cars? I know they don't have ballistic shields, but you should. Does each squad car have enough so that first officer on the scene can engage? I would like the sheriff to spend money on that, but would it be this money? Is it terrorism money?
Yeah, that's a good question, Dana.
Maybe it's better in the public safety committee rather than the board.
I'm sorry. I couldn't help
Yeah.
It was a great discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Completely threw me off.
Anyone opposed? It's carried.
Melissa, can you ask the sheriff about this? I would like to have a discussion on the Board of Supervisors meeting.
You don't think it's more appropriate in the committee?
Well, but he wasn't at the last two public safety meetings, I think.
He'll come. Yeah, no, well, I would have him come to the actual board because we're gonna vote on this. So let's have the discussion and get it off the table. I think you'll be more than glad to have the discussion.
Before your next public safety meeting, so you gotta table this until before your next public safety meeting, or have them come to the board.
I'd have him come to the board meeting.
But he's gonna spend he's gonna get the money anyway. I'm just asking, how is that money to be spent?
And it's a good thing to bring up under the situation that you mentioned. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, resolution K, amend public safety budget for fiscal year 22 emergency management performance grant.
So moved.
Dave, second by Darrell Wilson. Any discussion on this one? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution L is Youth Bureau for Youth Sports and Education Funding. Motion moved by Sue. Is there a second?
Second.
James Griffith and Darrell Wilson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution N is capital improvement plan for access control system. And this is just a fix of the lines. We have it under access control for Burgoyne, and it really needs to be split in half so we can monitor it where it's being used, because part of it's for here in this building too.
So moved, Chairman.
Moved by Darrell, second by Dave O'Brien. Any discussion?
Is this for all the identification like Melissa has?
This is for door locks. Speaking when you bulb it, the door don't even lock. This is for the access control, the automatic doors. It allows more doors you put on the locks, they can stay open, but then when there's a problem, one button can hit the locks, lock all the doors and segregate the building. All of that money was put into Burgoyne. As Brian said, we're allocating, some of it's, that was actually.
It's actually half and half, yeah.
Right,
So I don't want to discuss it here because it's probably privileged information, but I'd be interested to know where that button is.
Where what is?
It's in the Hartford Town Hall.
The red button.
The red button.
Well, it's in several places, but one of those is dispatch, who's going to control things. It's probably going to be the first call anyway.
Well, the deputy that's down at the entrance of this building, he'd probably be the very first one that would see something.
Not necessarily, he's not there.
It's according to what entrance it's on, yeah.
Yeah. Have that offline discussion, if you'd like to, but I'd rather not talk about
Right.
the tactics and strategy.
Right.
Okay.
I don't want to tell them who the first person they should go after.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Resolution N is to award the bid for engineering and architectural services for the DPW facility. Motion by Dave.
Second.
Darrell Wilson. Any discussion on this?
I have a comment. I don't know if anyone knows that Sean Doty is leaving Novella. Some of the community here, a lot of people work with it.
So I'm sure. Yes. So, you know, I guess it's relevant to let us know. I mean, it's not relevant to this decision.
Sean Doty. He's the chief engineer over in the local office.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Okay. Resolution O, to authorize application for local government efficiency project grant for Washington County, Fort Anne Shared Highway Barn to authorize local match. So motion, moved by Dave, second.
Second.
Olson, any discussion on that? Then say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Okay. Now. I have some others here. Okay. Go ahead.
So I'll just do a quick update, so I wasn't sure if Laura was gonna do it or not, but most of you are probably aware that back in March, I had to send a delinquent tax file to the New York State Tax and Finance. Because anybody who was delinquent on their taxes at least 1 year was in jeopardy of losing their star exemption. So the states took that file and sent out warning letters saying if you didn't pay by May 28th, you would be losing your star. So that file was, the final file was due to them yesterday. I sent that, and what was very concerning to me is I checked the file before I sent it, and there were still 850 names on there. So I just wanted to kind of update the board, because when these people get their letters, you all may start getting phone calls, as I did. When the warning letter came out, we got blasted. My staff was out straight for like weeks, because it says to call here if you have a problem. It's not our program, but it says to call here.
So you change it so it calls us now.
No, it's still gonna say to call me, but I just want to prepare you that the file that I sent out yesterday was much larger than I thought it was going to be. So I anticipate another round of very excited phone calls.
850 total properties, 850 principal residences we start at.
It appears to be 850 residences, because names repeat. So it's not property owners, it's properties. Now, remember though, I don't have any way to know how many of those are star properties.
Right.
So there was 850 delinquent properties. I don't know how many of them are primary residences that have the old school star. Because again, this is the star exemption. The thing that people have to remember is if you're one of the people who does lose your star, you can get back in the star program by paying the delinquent tax. Here's the catch, and this will shock you, put your shock face on. You don't get to go back into the exemption program, you can come back in the new program.
The check program.
So this is another way, in my humble opinion, the state wants everybody out of the exemption program. This is another way to get more people out of the old and into the new.
Now, if star only goes to the primary residence, why would you have the same name listed more than one? You can only have one primary residence.
So my guess is out of those, like if a name showed 3 times, 2 of those properties are probably not star eligible.
Okay.
So my file doesn't tell me that it's a star property, it just tells me it's delinquent.
Okay, so out of the 850 total delinquent properties,
Could
you have
be,
no idea how many of those are star.
I don't, it could be a third, it could be 10%, I don't,
And they actually have to be a residence to get the star.
Right.
there has to be your primary.
Primary.
And it has to be the old exemption program too, so it won't be 850, but it was still a much larger number than I thought. So I just want to make the board aware that file went out yesterday, and when the final determination letter comes out from Tax and Finance, your phones may ring again, so I just want to prepare you.
As long as we're talking about star, Kerry Warner sent out a Facebook thing last night about how the state is sending out supplemental star credits or checks
Yes,
in the mail now. So I sent out to all my peeps that, because a lot of times this looks like junk mail. To make,
It usually is.
look at your junk mail, make sure that you're not throwing away your supplemental.
this should actually look like a check, it should stand out, it should have those perforation tabs on the side. And then it's a percentage of your star credit based on your salary, this check.
But some, if you're old school, some might get a check, some might get some kind of a credit to apply to their future taxes.
I not as well versed as Laura would be, but that sounds what I know that the checks are a percentage of the star credit that you receive. So if you got a check in the fall, this would be a little bit larger than that check probably. But Laura could speak better on the.
But you are right, that the way they send them in the mail now, you never know, because I got one through that health insurance company the other day. And I was just gonna toss it, I better look at it, it says important information. open it up and there's a check in there that looked like it was something that was mimeographed. It was an actual check.
But these control checks come with the perforated
I
side.
can't believe it was real.
They should be fairly noticeable.
Do you have something else?
Just whenever you want to do that.
Do you want to go next or we?
Next would be the barns, so if you want to finish up.
Well, I don't know how long that's gonna take, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, go ahead.
So, yeah, actually, the county attorney's here, who drew up an agreement to present to our board as well as to the town of Fort Ann to go into, I guess, a partnership to build the new barn in Fort Ann. Roger, do you want to mention, or I don't know, who wants to mention the?
I can just give you a general lowdown. Monday night is the town of Fort Ann board meeting, but we just approved to accept the $470,000 engineering fee. We just moved that forward to the full board. So what we're looking for from the town of Fort Ann is some sort of agreement that basically, you know, in other words, binds into the process with us. What I don't want to do is go down the road and have one back out. So say if we just did this $470,000 engineering and then they decide they don't want to build, we're left with a spot that's not big enough to build and $470,000 bill that's useless for us. So we need some sort of agreement binding into the process of going from, you know, start to finish with this building.
And this is at that 60-40 split.
Yeah, 60-40 split is what's been recommended to us. So it's a 60-40 split minus the soft cost. I believe Roger, you know, alluded to that in there. Basically, when we engineer it, if it's something specific to them, it'll be a, you know, add-on in the bid. So you have a base price of a building and then an add-on to specific costs. You know, that this is a general agreement. And it was the agreement we based on Putnam that's worked for so many years. And it's worked well. So basically it's just framed on that. And it's something to reassure us and them. I mean, I guess it's the same thing. It is his attorney and his town board would want our agreement that we're gonna go forward with it too if they're gonna spend the money. So.
And we have to have their signature before we can actually pass it on Friday's board meeting. So the timing is important here.
So Roger has drafted the MOU. And if you want details on the MOU, I would, you know, Roger's the person to answer those questions.
Sam Hall.
Yeah, we're prepared in Fort Ann, take it to our board on Monday night to get the signatures that we need and on the agreement. I will sign off on that for the town of Fort Ann and hopefully do a resolution so the vice chair can sign off on it here for the county.
Anything you want to add, Roger?
Well, we're kind of short on details because we don't know what the details are yet, so the main comes first. So this generally outlines the 60-40 split. It generally says that if you want something in your percent, you know, in your area that doesn't benefit the other party, you're paying for all of that. It also talks about there's got to be some kind of separate financing agreement. And right now it leaves all the land, because we haven't talked about that, but it leaves all the land to the town. So we're kind of building. This is very different than Putnam. It's almost the reverse of Putnam because Putnam owned the land, built the barn, and we basically financed and paid for it. And we financed our own, the extra 2 or 3 days we added on to Putnam, we kicked into the mix. We're the project lead completely. We're doing all the work.
Fort Ann still owns the property.
Fort Ann still owns the property, and Fort Ann's paying 60% of the costs as they're determined based on there's going to be 10 days, right? So 6 of them there's 4 of us.
Is Putnam's a 99-year lease or something? Is that what there's?
Yeah, and then we put an agreement so that we could, you know.
And is that what we're doing the same with this?
Well, that's going to have to follow as well. This is just basically the outline of the 60.
This is just to get us there.
Right, that's what, so that everybody's got a skin in the game, but the details are still out there to be worked out, especially in terms of the financing. You know, are they paying their part directly, or are they paying us if we're paying it directly? All that kind of stuff needs to be worked out with Al and the bond companies and everybody else who's financing this thing, because we're not financing it out of our own pockets. And what kind of security interest there's going to be in, you know, that kind of thing. So this is the 40,000 foot agreement. This isn't where the rubber meets the road.
Okay, so we need a resolution to have the vice chair sign the MOA with the town of Fort Ann, and the resolution to apply for
The LGE grant.
the LGE grant. What's LGE stand for?
We do that already, wasn't that one of these, wasn't that one of the resolutions we just did?
That's what we're did. Right. So we need a resolution to move forward with this so that he can present it at the Fort Ann meeting. Motion by Dan Hogan, second.
Second.
Dan Wilson, Brian, all in favor, say aye.
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 Carried. Motion also be on the capital plan.
Okay, I have a copy of the contract. MOU.
Roger can give you one, Robert.
Right, want to do.
Well, I would, just my own, I'd like to read something before I then vote on it at the full board meeting. I want to vote on something I've never ever read. You know, I may not understand, I still want to be able to read it.
We're not, are we approving the MOU or just approving Bob to sign that? Yeah, that's right. We're not approving the MOU.
Bob's gonna decide whether it's legit or not.
So the timeline on that is Monday is the town board meeting. Hopefully they can approve to get it signed then, and then we would at full board next week. So there's discussion on the MOU. I think this is probably our last chance. I mean, let's get there.
Right, we have to know that the MOU is what we want to go to 48, right? And I think you gave the highlight.
We
I would give the highlights of it.
it's pretty easy, there's 9 points in it. If you want to go through the 9 points, I'll read it to you. It's pretty straightforward, like I said, this is the 40,000 foot viewpoint, this is not, so there's 9 points to the agreement. If you want to go through, that's how far I gets us, A through I points, if you want to go through those, I'd be more than happy to do that. Because that's the.
Well, I mean, you don't have to go through, I would like a copy of it so that I can kind of read it myself, but this is a lot of money.
Right.
And I think you can't really, I mean, we oversight the expenditure of $1,200 all day long, but we're just gonna go like $500,000, you know, that's not even be knowledgeable about it.
I mean, I'd almost rather you did, I don't usually say this, but I'd almost rather that everybody did understand what exactly we're getting into from our perspective as well, so that there's no glitches farther on down the road.
Well, if you're prepared, go ahead.
Hopping on the sled. Right?
Let's do it right now.
Do it.
All right, so number one, the previously conducted barn study, which is part of what we did, we split 60-40. The cost for general engineering or 60. This is number two. The cost for general engineering is 60-40. Any engineering costs associated with specific requests or functions by either party is going to be paid for by that party. So if you want something that's not generally part of the building, you're going to pay for that yourself. Right now, there's no allocations for, this is the next point, no allocations between the parties for land. It's going to be owned by the town. The county's total contribution of the cost of construction would be 40% of the cost of construction. It's further understood the facility will contain mutually shared spaces such as a break room and a restroom, the cost of which will be shared equally. And then 6 bays for the town, 4 bays for the county, the cost of which shall be shared at the prorated 64 rate. The project bid will contain specific items for each party, the cost of which will be allocated completely to the party requesting the item at no cost to the other. So when it goes out to bid, we're going to bid items separately and alternates that are going to be financed by that person that asked for that. Parties will enter in a separate financing agreement containing payment schedules and other details of the repayment of any debt associated with the project. The county will be the lead agency during the engineering, bidding, and construction of the facility. Agrees to keep the town reasonably informed of the progress of the project, provide regular updates as to the status and the cost. The cost of any change order requested by a single party shall be allocated to that party. Each party shall notify the other of any requested change orders. Any change orders not attributed solely to the requests or activities of one party will be approved by both parties. Parties further agree that the substantial value in terms of services and review are being provided by the county for this project. That's all of our time and effort. The town will be the lead agency after construction in the operation and maintenance of the facility. Agrees to keep the county reasonably informed of the condition and status of the building. The county will provide for a proportional share of the operation cost of the facility each year during the term of this agreement. The costs are going to be determined annually, subject to audit by the county. The share at this point is 60-40 the operations and maintenance facility. So the it's gonna need a new roof, 60-40 split, electricity, 60-40 split. The town will provide billing to the county on an annual basis with an estimate of the following year's costs to be provided in the way of September 1st of each year. That's a date I picked. Now, if you want a different date, let me know. The cost of any loss or damage to facility
Are you saying
associated.
that's a reconciliation date, basically?
Right, so
Are
by
we gonna pay,
and so
are we
you
gonna
can-
pay monthly and then just catch up?
So
on
what I'm
September
saying
1st?
is that for next year, by September 1st, for next year, there's gonna be an estimate of the O and M. Okay, so we're budgeting, we can figure out how much we're gonna need to pay them for the O and M, the electric, estimate of the electricity, an estimate of the gas, the estimate of everything else. So that we know going forward, what we've got a budget for our percentage of running that each year. And then capital costs such as roof replacements, will be agreed to by each party and allocated using a proportional split. So in other words, if somebody says the roof needs to be repaired, we have to agree that the roof needs to be repaired. Not just that the town's gonna go out and replace the roof and then send us a bill. Project milestones are agreed upon as follows. Feasibility study was completed, project engineering. Project estimate is the next phase, bid authorization, bid award, notice to proceed, and then final acceptance of the building. The parties agree that each will separately authorize each project's milestone, and their authorization will bind the parties to their current share of the associated costs. Each time we agree to go forward, both parties agree to go forward with each project milestone. And then finally, the agreement is not intended to bind either municipality to perform any particular service or rent any particular machinery, tools, or any project particular time. Rather, the agreement is for the purpose of establishing terms and conditions of the enforcement of the costs of engineering, construction, and maintenance of the facility. That's it. Then all we need to things that happen goes in out there.
Roger, I think that's more than enough detail. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the detail that we've got at this point.
Roger, how do we handle the mutual use areas, the break room, the restroom, the parking? Like if there's gonna be a future expense for maintenance, flooring, furniture, is that also 60-40
No,
or
that's
is that
gonna be
50?
that's gonna be 50-50 because we're both using it.
Because you're all using the same space.
Okay, that's an agreement. But it's also then you're talking about proportional. In those, like whatever future cost for maintenance would be proportional, but
Yeah, it's
does it say 50-50 or anything?
The facility will prepare mutually shared spaces such as break room and restroom, such as, but not limited to, the cost of which will be shared equally by the party.
What about parking? What do we do? Because that's a mutual use, but
I
we
think
have
that's-
less people.
That's such
Yeah,
as,
but that
but
could
not.
change from time to time too. We may end up with more people than.
No, but when it comes time to repay, pay
I
the
think that's a
parking.
cap under the capital. It's gonna cost enough to raise in the capital where we would have to, either do it ourselves, go out to bid, and then it's 60-40.
Okay.
Right, any capital costs like the roof each specified, but there could be a multiple.
It could be the internet system, could be anything.
I'm putting for instances, but not, I can't list every single.
Well,
one.
right, and we can't list every single one, because you just don't know. You have to keep it as a capital project.
Okay, thank you.
So,
At one point you said that town, as we go forward, would do the lead agency, would that be for sicker review?
No, in other words, we're building the building. Once the building's done, the town's gonna take over the operations that they're gonna be responsible then for running it.
That's correct. That's how we do it up here.
Right,
And,
that's since it's on their land and they have 60% of it, they're gonna determine how, they're gonna get, the electric meter is gonna be in their name, for instance. The water bill, the power, if there's a propane tank, they're gonna pay for it and then bill us going forward. So we're gonna build it, they're gonna run
The other
Check.
question, as it's being.
Any kind of maintenance in the facility, we schedule it, we program it, then we split the bill. Overhead doors, lighting, whatever we have to replace. It's easy.
it.
The
However,
reason it works so good is because we have employees there every day, along with their, in the same area. So nothing ever is done like even in Putnam without us knowing or having, some sort of, usually I'll go up and take a look at something if they need to, figure out, way to do it.
but if we dig a door with a plow, that's on us.
Well, the door would be on our hand.
Right.
And the door would be on his half. So, stuff like that is just simply, it's
We're just keeping the lights on, keeping the heat going, doing all that stuff. Paying the electric bill, paying the heating bill, all that stuff. They're gonna pay those bills and then we're gonna reimburse them. And then each year, they're gonna give us an estimate by September 1st of what the next year's cost estimate.
We protect ourselves.
So we can budget.
One other question, Roger. as the construction, will there be a project manager that will look out for both interests, county and town, or is that goes it?
Well, that's what,
That's how you have two project managers. You have a project manager on right. You have a project manager on the engineer and architects end. That's the details, and then I'll be the general project manager of the whole project.
so we're,
So would you just much less, or the general?
That'd be a combination of me and the project manager that's provided by the engineering.
but we're building the building. Okay, so that's gonna be, we're gonna, obviously, there's a thing here, we're gonna consult with the town, do all, you know, all that good stuff. But we're building the, you can't have too many cooks, so we're building the building. Once the building's done, we're turning it over to them, they're running the building.
Wasn't sure how.
Mr. Hogan.
How do we insure
I think that comes under, I look at that as being under operations and maintenance, so the building insurance will be whatever, and then they'll provide that as part of our costs. So just like they're saying, your estimated cost for electricity is gonna be whatever your estimated cost of insurance, here it is, 60/40.
And we're both under
Yeah,
it? If there were a
um,
total loss and there's trucks inside, our trucks would be insured under.
Our truck's insured by us.
Pro rata.
Right, and I would say, so let's say, for example, I don't know, if you want to have a welding shop in there, one of the parties wanted to have a welding shop. If there was an increase in the premium attributable to something like that, I don't know if there would be, but maybe there is, because it's a little more, you're doing a little more dangerous activities with fire than you are necessarily by parking a truck in there. That would have to be determined and then allocated to the party that.
We don't do, like, do they do sand up in Florida? Can't throw out the sand for the residents. Do we ever have people coming on the ground?
That I don't know.
Or the people come out and get sand, Sam?
Yes.
What would happen if somebody, I'm just throwing, somebody gets backed up over, child gets backed up over, getting sand with his body, not that.
Well, the premises liability would go to the project, and then the vehicle liability would go to the person that owns the vehicle.
Whichever.
Right, but we own part of it. We own part of it.
We'd have some liability because of the building and the grounds, but they would have.
Just like we would, just
Whoever,
like we would.
because it could be our vehicle that did it.
Okay.
And we're both with Nymer, so I think that would be the same insurance
Well,
agent.
a jury would proportion that blame as well. Yeah.
Did you have something, Jay?
Yeah, to finish that comment about insurance, I know it's covered under the Putnam policy for the barn up here. I can't remember off the top of my head if Putnam is compensated by the county for the insurance cost. I know for a fact with all the utilities and stuff, but I'll check into the insurance piece of that. But yes, the whole building is under the Putnam policy.
The mutual space, are the employees all held under the same standards, employee and behavior?
Well, we train the town.
Yeah.
In terms of
Safety
employee
officer.
harassment, things like, how much break time you get, I can't
Right.
figure it out. but,
Yeah.
Yeah,
How does it work?
the laws that we're governed under, the harassment laws.
Yeah, they could have
those kinds of-
different-
They're all federal and state laws.
Well, they could
Yes.
have different hours, I guess.
Well, right,
Yeah.
but, I mean, I guess the standards of behavior are all federal and state laws that we do the training, so they should be the same.
Are we sharing anything like sharing the loader? Because we use different materials, county uses all salt, or Ann probably uses a hot mix, so are we sharing machinery that is now in this 60/40 realm?
That's not gonna be part of the system.
That's not
Getting
part
the
of
building up and doing,
building,
that's gonna be
no.
something that we do.
No.
We're engaged and we're planning a wedding. We're not deciding who's doing the laundry after.
You got it.
That's your analogy. You use it and it works every time.
Okay, I like.
But to answer Dana's question, sometimes we,
We're engaged in planning
there's
well.
there's times when our loader's down or the county loader's down. We borrow, we share, we get it done because we gotta get the roads clear.
And there are pre-existing machinery sharing agreements with every town and then if it became long-term, like we need to give you or lend you a loader, then we talk about machinery rental rates and all. That has nothing to do with the building. This just gets the building up and running.
The
Hopefully, we're
same
all good
mission.
neighbors.
On a big storm, we load for the county, they load for, I mean, everybody's in and out of the yard at the same time, trying to get the same mission done. So it all depends on how well they work together. Sometimes we load the county trucks, sometimes they load us.
my job is to anticipate what happens when things go wrong. If everything works, you don't need people like me. It's what happens when things don't work, and you try to anticipate and allocate the risk appropriately. Let's hope it all goes really well, but that's what I'm trying to anticipate in this agreement, is what's gonna, so that everybody's on the same sheet of music as we walk our way through the process. So that when we get to the end, we have a building that works and is running and everybody knows what everybody else is doing.
You really described how lawyers fit in the
That sounds like
project.
about what we want this stage of the.
Yeah,
Well, I have a sticker on my fridge or a magnet on my fridge that says the lawyer, person whose job is to protect his client from other members of the profession.
Mr. Half, is that sufficient?
Thank
I
you,
thought it was good.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Now, the last thing was, we just updated the project, the capital project, or the capital plan, I guess it is, from our old format to our new format. Next year, I'm taking the 1 year off, but the caveat is this is all under the discretion of Cassie's work group. So, go ahead.
So if you've got the colored ones, they're a little bit easier to follow, because the colors mean something on them. And as Brian said, the biggest thing to remember about this is the staff getting together, talking about the things that we know about with Matt and such. This is just the draft that Cassie's work group will be able to start from. We're not telling you this is the plan. We're giving you a draft to start. This is the jump off point for Cassie's work group. These are the things that we know about as we sit here today. And in 25 and 26, we did put another county barn in as a placeholder. There are other barns besides Middle Falls and Fort Ann that need some love. So I think the three biggest things for Cassie's work group, in my humble opinion, is DPW, does it stay on site or move? Do you want a strategic plan for a more 30,000 foot strategic plan? I'm not gonna call it the N word because people don't like that. And then, those two trigger points, really, everything else. So what you see noticeably missing from this capital plan is this campus. It's because that first trigger point that Cassie's group has to attack. I could almost give you a flow chart that says, okay, if DPW stays here, these are the trigger points for the board to decide. If DPW was to go offsite, these are the trigger points for this board to decide. So it's not even a binary path, really, but that first question is binary. Does DPW stay or go? And a lot of other things about this campus stem from that decision. So that's why you see it noticeably missing from here, because we can't make any kind of intelligent, even draft version for you until that's decided. So these are things other than the county complex, except for little things like planning for a county barn and planning for the Valmet and the Alva Street buildings that have to come down regardless of your decision.
If you look at this, is that what you talked about is the county barn, where does it go? That could affect decisions on some of the other projects here.
It can, absolutely.
For example, if we say, well, we want to keep the mechanics here.
Yes.
And take the trucks elsewhere, or split them between barns, whatever, that may affect what we do for the other barns there too, and where we put them in.
Right. Which you see is noticeably missing from the paper in your hand.
And that's why the caveat of where the work group goes with that.
Could you say what the colors are?
Oh, I'm sorry. So the light peachy colors, if you flip to the back side, they coordinate with budgets you've already put in place. So those are projects that are currently funded and underway. The green coordinates with the regular project contingency. And then the gold is contingency money that was brought in through the American Relief Fund. So out of the first tranche of money, we sent $653,000 to the capital plan. So that $653 is represented by those gold bars. And the heading says ARP monies.
By gold bars, is that
Gold bars, yeah. We printed that money.
The Bitcoin is in the gold area.
Not anymore.
Still doing good.
But again, this was just meant as a, sorry, Matt.
No,
This was meant as a jump off point for the work group.
Go ahead, Matt.
So I just want to get us to the point where you're at. Can we walk through this real quick? I just
Sure,
wanna-
yes.
So the Burgoyne roof is done. Burgoyne Avenue parking lot phase 1 is done. The 2 jail rooftop units, that's complete, right? The barn consolidation study is done. The Burgoyne Avenue is the public health upgrades, that's being done 2022, right?
After once we find it from state what we need, this is a placeholder for those things.
Yeah, right, we would like to do that.
It could be less, could be.
The jail roof replacement engineering is complete, right, Matt?
Underway.
Underway.
Underway, and the jail roof replacement would be actually next year.
Could
Possibly this year?
Yeah, we could do it this fall. I don't know yet. Like a lot of that depends on materials.
Okay,
I think it's gonna, come soon. We'll find out.
all right, so it could be late this year, early next year.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
The engineering for the Fort Ann barn,
You just authorized.
right, so we're good with that in 2022. The engineering for the Middle Falls barn, we're gonna tackle that in 2022?
If we can.
That's going out to RFP now, right?
It's not out there. We're in the middle of that study, but like to present to you before we go to the
Also
full
underway.
engineering. Yeah.
So the 2021 and 2022, we're in really pretty good shape, we're kind of.
We're on track.
Now, so as we get into 2023, is the linchpin what Cassie's
Yes.
committee comes up with before we do anything in 2023? Or are there certain ones of these that
But
couldn't happen anyway, it's gotta happen?
the buildings and ground superintendent would love this list to happen in addition to whatever Cassie's group decides.
Well, there is things down here if you want to go down that don't hinge on in 2023, don't hinge on that, like a roof on, the St. Paul building.
Right, so you're gonna plan to go ahead with several of these?
Well, the master plan is kind of what hinges on what comes out of Cassie's stuff.
Yeah, so
too.
the main complex, you want to go down?
The very first one.
Well, okay, so the main complex plan, that's being discussed in that subcommittee.
Yes.
Mr. Hicks, can I just respectfully ask, can we discuss that first one? Because it was taken out before, and the recommendation is to have you reconsider it. And if you don't like the M word, we can call it the S word instead and call it a strategic plan. But that county master plan, I still believe it has value, so we're asking again, if there's an appetite. This would be literally hiring a consultant.
Oh, you're asking if we wanna just kill it now and say we don't
If you
want to.
wanna kill it now, then
we get Cassie's committee disbanded and
Right.
we don't have to worry about it.
Well, no, if the board doesn't have an appetite to even discuss a master plan, we'll happily remove it and not even have it be part of the discussion. If you want to at least discuss, then absolutely.
But the whole idea behind the master plan is to get somebody with expertise to look at everything we have instead of us saying, oh, I like that. Well, that's nice, but if you did it this way, maybe it's better.
In a
It's kind of the
perfect,
way the college looked at how they.
in a
redid
perfect
their
world,
facility.
Cassie's group would discuss.
I don't think you can do that for 150,000. Master plan.
Well, we've done so many small sections of it already.
Yeah.
Those are all on the shelf.
That's right, we're gonna be pulling all that in. and
Pull all them back.
We've got it modularized already, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
The master plan is, or whatever you want to call it, the strategic plan. I think that's key and that we should all consider that. What we're doing, unfortunately, is piecemealing capability and concept. And it's all for the right reason, right? Affordability. But if we don't have a grand scheme of what we're trying to achieve, what you end up doing is the affordability degrades the efficiency of the operations. So as an example, is DPW remain on the campus or do they go? Not in part, because if you start imparting this, then, or we shouldn't make that decision is my point. Because the efficiency and effectiveness of the operation is impacted and can cost us either direct monetary value later on or related to efficiency. So we shouldn't get involved in that is my counsel. So the working group, Cassie, and I know she wants to say something, that's critical because it's gonna fuse into the master in terms of, or the strategic plan in terms of what we desire to accomplish end state. Thanks.
Cassie, go ahead.
I was hoping that once we had that plan in place, it would be a blueprint, because the supervisors rotate every 2 years. And I feel like in just the amount of time I've been there, it all depends. We gain traction, we lose traction, we gain traction, we lose traction. And I'm hoping by having an overall long range plan out there, that it will help the consistency and help it keep moving forward, even though some of the supervisors rotate out every 2 years. Because I think that's one of the biggest things we lack as a county board, is we only look in front of ourselves. There's few that look out long term, and sometimes I think our own personalities dictate too much on the decisions. And I think, you know, like Matt says, you have an overseer look at it and help create this plan and pull everything together, that it will give us a blueprint for moving forward in the future, and something that we can use even though the supervisors rotate. And this keeps us moving forward, where we're in a more proactive position rather than, oh my God, the roof's falling off, reactive, we don't have a furnace here, you know, or this building needs to move. You know, we're always reactive. I'm hoping to create something as a group that will be more proactive. And our group is just like with the ARP funds, we'll be looking at it, and we're not making solid decisions without you, but we'll be bringing ideas to you. You know, it's not like we're going to make a decision without the rest of the board, but it's like how the ARP group worked. We're going to bring some ideas forward, and then everybody can decide. And Matt's really the overseer on this, and he has a lot of knowledge and a lot of good advice, and we need to respect a lot of what he says.
Well, my point was, you want get a consensus that if this group wants to kill it, let's kill it now. If they don't want to kill it,
Let's leave it
move
in.
on.
Yes.
We don't have to debate the quality of doing this if no one wants to kill it.
Sure.
So if we don't want to kill it,
Leave it in.
leave it, let's move on.
Okay.
Can I just discuss killing it a little bit?
Yeah.
This is a grandiose idea to have a master plan, but then when we see the price tag on these things, we reject it. And the parking is a perfect example. That was what, $700,000, and we all said, "Oh."
It was
So we paid a lot of money for all these components in the master plan, but then we reject it. There's 17 of us, that's the problem. There's not one general in charge. And so if we're gonna come up with a master plan, 2-3 years from now, when we go to spend the money on it, we may say, we don't have the money. And so I always think a master plan in this political environment is designed to fail. We won't agree on it.
Plan's not static.
Right, right. It's a living document. You keep moving it along. That's the whole idea behind it.
Mr. Rapp, if I can just speak to that, the benefit that I see from the fiscal side is, even if you decide later that you're going to stray from the master plan gives you a blueprint of what you should be setting aside. So the whole point of a 5-year capital plan or 10-year capital plan or 15-year capital plan is you need to contribute something every year. It's to help you discipline the budget officer and yourselves to lock in a number that you're going to. So this form should in fact show you your financial needs, so that you're not the night before going, oh crap, I'm getting married tomorrow. That a year ahead, you're planning the venue, you're planning the caterer, to go back to the wedding scenario, man. So, you know what I mean? So this, even if you stray from the 5-year plan, it gives you that financing map to make sure you're committing something every year.
Talk about analogies. This gives you the road to drive on, but doesn't tell you the speed limit. So 3 years from now, we don't have the money to do this. It doesn't leave the master plan. It moves down the master.
It's reprioritized.
That's right. As it goes down, I think a master plan that I've been involved with doesn't say, well, a capital plan, we plan for the funding of it, but the plan itself, if it happens, you know, if the master plan estimate is 10 years, it might be 12, you know, because obviously our economics are going to go up and down. So you might have 8 projects in this 4-year because you have the money, but the next 4 years, you might have to put it on hold, but at least you have that document to pull back up in front of new supervisors, new people that say, hey, there was a plan. This is the plan, you know, and we can continue on.
And to coincide with that, if you notice the things that have already been done and the ones that are being done this year, they've been on the plan for a long time, and they got moved up and happened because we were able to fund it. So what he's saying, that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, well, guess what? 25 years from now, we got to do it again. So we better start planning for
Yeah,
it.
there's a lot to be done between now and then, yeah.
I won't give it that.
You guys can still be here.
You'll still be paying taxes. So you will care.
And so if we look at this, we also need to look at the money that's coming from TDI over 30 years. That might be a way to help fund a lot of this stuff. Take that money and dedicate it to the capital plan. We have some coming in host plant, I'm trying to look at the number, I forgot the numbers. We have some coming in host benefit, we have some coming in pilot payments. So if we look at that, potentially I was trying to find the number here, which I will in a couple of minutes, but we have a long-term strategy, but if we look at getting on board what has to be done, part of that's going to be priority is what has to be done before each other sequence happens. And because if you try and make a new highway barn over here without knowing what's going to happen on the rest of the campus, it may be more expensive. And we have to look at things when we talk about this working group, as such as if we go to a new piece of land in Argyle or someplace else like that, we're going to have infrastructure costs that wouldn't have to be put structures here. So there's a lot of things that would be interdependent on that. And there's a place for driving this because we really haven't driven this capital plan long-term enough for the past few years. We only really started doing this in the past 4 or 5 years. And if we keep on kicking cans down the road on maintenance and structures and everything else like that, it just gets more expensive. We're not solving a problem. We're not lessening the cost. We're actually could potentially putting a bigger impact on the taxpayers by kicking down the road. If you have another sequence of times when prices and materials go up 35–40%, it could be much more expensive down the road than doing it today. So there's a part for the working.
Yeah, back to the list. Go down the list.
Okay, well,
Keep going.
the rest of it's for 2023.
Yes.
And these are the things that Matt's got on his agenda. There's just, 3 big ticket items, but everything else is basic stuff. And it's going to be, well, then Matt thinks it's reasonable that we can accomplish these in the next 18 months. And you'll prioritize them and to see which ones they are.
And that's my hope. I mean, as you can see, in the last 4 or 5 years, we've been doing this sometimes.
On the other hand,
Important.
Matt, if you've already bumped the 4D building cost to $4 million and you still open a Paul's at 2.5, is that still a good number?
I think so.
Okay.
It's a different project.
Okay, and I'm just checking.
Right, on the other side, can I just jump on the other side of the ledger real quick? So, and we stand about $3.5 million in the capital plan at the moment. Besides the roof, I mean, the roof is budgeted for potentially for this year, right?
Yeah.
So it's really, after the roof, we have about $3.5 million in the capital plan. Ballpark.
I have to check, that sounds
Close. And then there's $1 million in 2022 budget that got moved in there in January 2023.
Yep.
And then there's the ARPA funds, which are earmarked for the capital plan, which is, I think, was what, $5 million?
They're already there.
They're already moved over there.
So
the
the 5 million of the barn money is already set aside.
Right.
set aside an earmark for the barn.
Yes.
That's not part of the 3.5 that we have in cash.
No, it's actually in a separate capital.
That's in a separate capital project. And then, and the $2 million for the roof is still.
Isn't this one?
Isn't this one. Okay. So there is quite a bit of revenue there as we tackle some of these.
So it's in 2023 to finish that up, getting rid of the buildings that have to go is important because we need to build the Meals on Wheels building because they can't stay there when public health goes there for very long, if at all. So that's why those things are on. And then the public safety CAD system, we know that's coming right up from the last meeting in my talk with Ken and whatever. So they got added in on 2023. Now, remember, 2023 is full, but some of them might get pushed to 2024 or whatever. It's just timetable and money.
Sure. Day and a half ago, we just write master plan.
Could I be so simple that this is the master plan? It's 4 years, but that's everything we're planning on doing.
No, so the master plan, what you're trying to do with the master plan, you're trying to put something together so you don't build a building in the way of where you should have had something else. you're having somebody look at it that has a little more organization, yeah.
BBW, we tearing down the.
Right.
DPW building, where the electronics charging station.
Wouldn't that be a crime?
Right.
Wouldn't that be a crime?
Yes, it would be.
And it would in theory also include the Salem substation, the Head Start buildings, a master plan would be a county master plan, not just this campus. It would be our
It'd be
outbuildings as
going,
well.
it'd be all of them.
Right, but this has all that on it.
No,
I know I'm
It
being
just
simple,
shows
but
what, we're just saying what we can fund and what we're trying to accomplish. But somebody has to organize that can strategically make sure that things are where they belong, so we're not making ourselves inefficient.
this is a very short term.
Because we've attacked, we have so many portions of it that they're just taking up the portions together that we have.
If I just remember, we got $55 million coming over the next 30 years from TDI.
That pilot or?
That would split half and half.
That's 25 million in the next 30 years.
Or you could dedicate part of the pilot payments coming in to go into that also.
Well, but I think you gotta do.
Or if you don't increase that.
But yeah.
We'll have post payment. We can do whatever we want with post benefit payments in terms of this.
2022 and 2023.
Right, and it's all a big pot of money, so right.
Your money, you should talk to Cassie committee about that. That's, she's looking at longer term.
Long term.
22 and 23, we're not gonna see the TDI money.
They might see 50 cents.
It'd be nice to update the 76 months of finance just so we keep it fresh.
Yep. And I have a feeling after Cassie's group meets, you'll see another version of this. This is best guess draft to start with. I mean, this is literally the building block.
But you want to be in Cassie's group, Dave?
I tried, but they wouldn't let me.
Well, we feel sorry for Nancy.
I got forbidden.
You got offended.
I wore my Ultra MAGA hat.
That was your dark MAGA hat.
Okay, is there any other questions on the capital plan? Are we good? It's gonna be an ongoing thing.
So I think part of this points out that this group, we looking at CSTEM, we start working, meeting now and getting this book going, there's a lot of contingent on this.
We've been there, Dave, you've been there. Yeah. Me too.
Cassie, let's schedule our rainy days.
Yeah.
Did you say something?
You said it's not ready.
That's all the rainy days and stuff. It's always on my.
Get me down.
Monday.
Okay, is there anything else to come before the board? Adjourned. Adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Good job.